I'm Kaya McRuer.
How long have you been involved in theater?
My mom actually took me to a theater when I was like 6. She sort of thought I was a bit of a drama queen at that age already. So I've been doing theater, sort of one play a year all the way up through junior year of high school. And then I started really doing a lot then. And ever since, I've been doing somewhere between 3 and 5 plays a year.
Oh, that's great. How long have you been involved in specifically Stanford's theater program?
So I'm a rising sophomore, which means that I just did my freshman year this last year. So I'm in the Stanford Shakespeare Company, so I did 2 shows with them during my freshman year, and this is the first show that I'm actually doing with the Stanford Theater Department. But this program is really cool, so maybe in future years I'll do it again.
Well, what do you like about this program specifically?
It's a pretty unique opportunity, actually, to be an undergraduate who doesn't necessarily have a lot of professional acting experience to get paid to be in a show, essentially, which is really cool. And we're also working with professional actors, so learning from them and seeing the things that they do is really, really interesting. And it's a great way to learn about your own abilities and how to sort of, sort of copy them, so to speak, and get better that way.
What's your role in the Moby Dick play?
So this play is called Moby Dick Rehearsed, and it's Orson Welles' adaptation of Herman Melville's Moby Dick, which in the original, there was like a prologue where it's this acting company in like the mid-19th century who are doing this other play, and then the governor comes in and is like, just kidding, you guys are going to do Moby Dick, and I'm going to play Ahab. But our prologue is actually written by our director, Rush Rem, and we are essentially a modern acting company working on a show of King Lear by Shakespeare. And the director is very avant-garde and asking us to do all these weird things. And so everyone gets really frustrated, and there's this big fight. And we decide to do an acting exercise where we're basically reading this adaptation of Moby Dick that one of the actors has been working on writing. And then it just sort of flows into the show Moby Dick. So I am the stage manager of the King Lear production. And then as it becomes Moby Dick, I become a sailor and a steward and all these different things. We sort of play a bunch of different characters throughout the show. A lot of us do, not everyone, but yeah.
What do you like about playing your characters, or what's specific? Do you think is specific about your specific characters?
Well, I've been a stage manager before, so it's kind of fun to play a stage manager. There's it's a very specific type of person who is a stage manager, usually very like organized and efficient, and having to pay very direct attention to the director and but also be the person who sort of pats down egos and gets everyone to be where they want to be. So as at least pretending that they're happy to be doing what they're doing. So that's kind of fun. And then I feel like I'm getting a lot out of doing this show just because we do a lot of physicality stuff and a lot of in unison ensemble work, just to make it really look as though we're working on a ship together, which is something that I haven't really done a lot of. I've done very physical shows, but not ones where it's a lot of very choreographed physicality, which is what we're doing here essentially, which is very cool. And then I also like the process of this show because it's very collaborative and we all get to sort of input our ideas as to what is going to make it look most realistic and what's going to feel most like we're on water and that kind of thing.
What are some of your difficulties working on this play?
Because there's so much in unison physicality work, we have to do our physical work over and over and over again, really to get it down pat so that it looks really good. Because if it's not in unison, if there's one person off beat, then it's going to look weird. But it means that we're doing the same scene, 4 hours a day for 2 weeks or whatever, which can be a little exhausting, but yeah.
So, what do you think is your favorite part about working on this play?
I like the people a lot, and that's usually my favorite part of shows. I love meeting new people, and I really like to learn from different actors with different skills and different abilities. I really think that each show demonstrates different abilities from different actors. So the last show I was in was a Shakespeare comedy, and I was a clown, and I was working with this amazing comedic actor as my scene partner, and I learned a lot from him doing that. So here I'm learning a lot from people who are professional actors and seeing how they prepare and how they stay focused in rehearsals and that kind of thing, which I think is really valuable.
So what's something new that you learned from the actors in this particular play?
Well, the guy playing Ahab, I feel like, is very, very focused in rehearsals and is almost always in character, which I think is a really, it's not an easy process to maintain, but I think it's a valuable one, and one I think maybe I'll try and emulate if I ever have a similar role, just because it's a good way to stay really, really focused and to really put out your best performance.
What are some of your expectations for the play?
I think that this is actually going to be a really, really good production. I'm always impressed by the caliber of the people that I get to work with here. They're just spectacular actors and very, very dedicated to their craft. I also think that our director has a very, all-encompassing vision for it, and I think that especially the physicality that we do with the ship and that kind of thing is really going to read to the audience very well. It's going to be a very visually interesting and pleasing show. And the language, Herman Melville's writing is just absolutely beautiful, and the way that Orson Welles and Rushram have sort of organized all of it, it's a very intense story as well. So I'm excited to see how people react.
So can you describe maybe some of the physicality for us?
Sure. So there's one scene in particular, we're sort of out on, so Moby Dick is about a whaling ship, essentially, hunting down this, basically a monster whale. So there's one scene where we're all out on our whaling boats and we're going to go hunt Moby Dick, essentially. We're going to go, the way that they would hunt would be they'd harpoon a whale and it would drag them along the water for a while, and then they'd have to stab it to death. I know, it's kind of vicious, actually. But when we're out on the boats, so one thing is we'd be sort of rocking in unison, as if we're going over waves, just to give the feeling of being in the water. And then also these whaling guys would row for hours to catch up with a whale after they got into their whaling boats. So they'd all be rowing, and it's a very specific movement to row. So you'd have it down in the water, and then you have to push it out of the water and push forward, all in unison together. And so we do a lot of that, and we do that while we're singing sea shanties and that kind of thing. And then there's when we're out, when we've got the harpoon in the whale and it's dragging us along the water, we have to be crouched on our boats, and we're kind of bouncing and being jerked all around by hitting these giant waves on our whaling boat. It's fun. And then at other points in the show, we're just on the ship and we have to furl these massive sails on a top mast. So we're all imagining that we're standing on this thing that's 60 feet in the air, trying to furl this giant sail in unison without ropes tying us to it or anything. It's fun. It's a party.
So how do you guys practice kind of being in unison, and can you describe your typical day of training?
Sure. So part of it is that we watch YouTube videos essentially about what it's like to be on a ship, and we devise we write down and devise a set of movements that are going to show exactly what that would be. So for example, for furling a sail, you untie a rope, you throw out the rope, and then you lean down and pull up the sail a few times and fold it and fold it and fold it, and then you have to tie it down to the top mast. And we basically just do those set of movements over and over and over again until we know them all by heart and can do them together.
I was just wondering, so do you practice by yourself first, and then you guys, how do you guys practice it together? How do you guys get everything coordinated?
Literally just stand in a line and do it together. Our stage manager will sometimes help by calling out the actions in sequence to us so that nobody forgets, and then you just practice them over and over and over again until you really have them down. We also they'll send us videos and stuff to watch in the evenings after rehearsal or in the mornings before we come to rehearsal, just to have a sense of what the movements are.
Do you have a set time for rehearsal, or does it just keep going until you guys are done getting it, or you're just completely exhausted?
So, we are completely exhausted by the end of rehearsals, but typically we're working from about 2 to 10. every day. There are a few days where we'll work from like 10 to 6 or something like that instead. But we're working on equity time because we have a couple of union actors in the show, which essentially means that you have to take like an hour break after 5 hours of work, and you have to take a 5 or 10 minute break every hour so you can like go get water and stuff like that, which is really nice because I don't think I'd be able to handle it otherwise. It's very difficult to be up on stage working really hard for like a long period of time. Yeah, I go home and I go to bed because I'm always really tired after rehearsals. But
Can you define what's equity time?
yeah, so essentially, if you're a union actor, there are 2 of them, I think, in our show. It's just like once you've hit a level of professionalism, you can apply to be in the union. You pay union dues, and they basically, there's a list of rules that a theater has to follow for union actors, and it's basically just to protect their well-being and make sure that they have time to get enough water so they don't get dehydrated, and they get enough breaks to go eat meals and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Do union workers ever get in conflicts with the theater program, or is it usually just okay?
I doubt it. I mean, I don't really know that much about it, but I mean, at least at Stanford, I would imagine that they're pretty used to working with that. And then most theaters are very used to working with equity actors as well.
How do you handle acting on top of your probably rigorous academic schedule?
I mean, here at Stanford, a lot of people do multiple things. Most people do some kind of extracurricular activity, and I just don't sleep that much.
So, well, it looks like our time is running up, but thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. It was nice to talk to you.
All right.